Imagine you are sitting in just the most opulent room imaginable.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. So you're wearing a bespoke tuxedo or, maybe this breathtaking silk gown that moves like liquid.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Crystal chandeliers are gleaming overhead. They're casting this warm golden light across the room. A string quartet in the corner is playing a flawless, sweeping waltz. And then, like, suddenly, the floor beneath your feet begins to shake.
Uh-oh.
The ceiling violently cracks. A grand piano literally slides across the marble floor
Yeah.
as this massive earthquake just rips the foundation of the building apart. So what do? Do you panic?
I mean, the human nervous system definitely says yes. You scream, you dive under a heavy table, you run for the nearest exit to save your life.
Right, exactly. That is the instinctual biological response. But in the world we are exploring today, you don't do any of that.
Not at all.
Instead, you casually adjust your cuffs, you pick up a glass of perfectly chilled French champagne, and you turn to the person next to you as plaster from the ceiling literally rains down into your drink, and you say, well, what a swell party this is.
It is the ultimate rejection of reality. It's like it's composure weaponized against catastrophe.
And it is absolutely brilliant. So welcome, everyone, to episode 67 of Porter-Pedia, the show where we explore the fascinating world, work, and life of the one and only Cole Porter.
It's so great to be here for this one.
I am incredibly excited for today's exploration because we are dissecting the references dropped in another of Porter's legendary list songs. Today, we are immersing ourselves in, well, did you, Evah?
Yes, but wait, before we go a single step further into the mechanics of the music or, the history, we have to establish a very crucial pronunciation note for you, the listener.
Oh, absolutely critical. Yeah, if you look at the title on paper or on the sheet music, it is spelled E-V-A-H.
Right.
But you must never, ever pronounce it.
Oh, that's what it rhymes with.
Like lava or guava.
Please don't do that.
It is a stylized phonetic spelling of the word ever, but to actually get the joke, to understand the precise social class Porter is satirizing, it must be pronounced in this incredibly clipped, hyper-upper-class, lockjaw dialect. It is Evah.
Well, did you ever?
Exactly. You have to sound like your jaw is immobilized by generations of inherited wealth. Evah. Try it right now wherever you are listening. It feels incredibly haughty in the mouth. The teeth barely part.
It really changes the whole vibe of the phrase.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Now, as you likely know, we have already dissected the incredible Porter list songs, Farming, You're the Top, and They Couldn't Compare to You, among others.
And we have so many more to come.
We really do. If you haven't caught those yet, I highly encourage you to check out those past explorations because we are building this massive tapestry of Porter's lyrical universe.
The sheer volume of material he gives us to work with is just staggering. I mean, he wasn't just writing songs, he was cataloging an entire civilization.
He really was. And, if you enjoy this type of granular, obsessive exploration of his lyrics, you absolutely must buy the book Porter-Pedia.
Oh, it's essential reading.
It painstakingly explains every single reference Cole Porter ever dropped in his work. We are talking about over 2,600 individual references, completely cross-reference and contextualize. The link to purchase that book is right there in the description.
Don't regret it.
Also in the description, there is a link to an absolutely amazing performance of, well, did you, Evah? You simply must hear it. It brings everything we're about to discuss today to life, and you will find the full lyrics there as well so you can follow along with us.
So to set our mission for today's show, we are using a fascinating source article that frames the core thesis of this specific song.
Right.
We are exploring how Cole Porter used this overwhelming barrage of high society references and just utterly absurd disasters to create a sharp satirical portrait of a wealthy class, a class that was essentially trained to convert catastrophe into wit.
Which is wild. And to understand how a song about completely ignoring disasters manages to be so sharp, we first need to, place you directly into the specific historical and theatrical ecosystem of 1939 America.
Because context is the engine of satire. Without the context of 1939, the song is just a bouncy melody. But with it, it becomes a scalpel.
Exactly. The song was originally written for the 1939 Broadway musical Du Barry Was a Lady.
Right.
And this wasn't some gritty, socially conscious drama. This was a lavish, over-the-top escapist fantasy starring Ethel Merman, Bert Lahr, and Betty Grable.
A powerhouse cast.
It really was. It was peak Broadway spectacle at the tail end of a decade that was absolutely starved for distraction.
Because If we look at the macro environment, 1939 was a year of profound cultural whiplash in the United States.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You have a country still scarred by the Great Depression. I mean, the economic devastation was still a lived reality for millions of people, and simultaneously, Americans are looking across the Atlantic, anxiously watching Europe drift inevitably toward World War II.
Right, fascism is on the rise.
Exactly. Global instability is at a boiling point. The tension is just suffocating.
But does this song reflect that suffocating anxiety? Absolutely not. It aggressively refuses it. There's this one lyric where they describe the party as post-depression.
I love that line so much.
It just blows my mind every time I hear it. He brilliantly shrinks this devastating, decade-long economic catastrophe into this breezy, throwaway cocktail party slang. Ah, it's so post-depression, darling.
What's vital to understand here is that Porter grasped a fundamental truth about sophisticated comedy. It almost entirely depends on denial.
Oh, completely.
The more unstable and terrifying the real world becomes, the more aggressively high society insists upon its own elegance. The elegance basically becomes a fortress.
And he lays down the rules for this fortress right at the very beginning of the song.
He really does.
The opening lines function as a perfect miniature etiquette lesson. The singer explains that when one is out in smart society and suddenly gets bad news, one mustn't show anxiety and proceed to sing the blues.
Right? No singing the blues.
Instead, he says he'll show you how a racket club lad would behave.
And that specific phrase, the racket club lad, instantly maps the sociological terrain for a 1939 audience.
How so?
Well, the Manhattan Racket and Tennis Club wasn't just a place to play sports. It was a bastion of wealthy elites. It was a physical manifestation of a very particular, heavily guarded brand of upper-class masculinity.
It's the kind of place where panic is simply uncouth. Caring too much or showing genuine emotional distress is a massive social faux pas.
Exactly.
When I was reading through our sources for this, I immediately thought of that modern internet meme. The cartoon dog sitting at a table in a room that is entirely engulfed in flames.
Oh, the "this is fine" meme.
Yes. That dog is the exact modern equivalent of Porter's Racket Club
Oh,
lad.
that is so true.
The world is literally combusting around him. The air is turning to ash, but he's just sitting there sipping his coffee. Or, in this case, his perfectly chilled champagne, just pretending everything is perfectly pleasant.
Yeah. Because in this specific social stratum, emotional suppression isn't just a habit. It is an actual social accomplishment. It is proof of your breeding.
That's the perfect parallel. The joke isn't the fire itself. The joke is the total absurd refusal to react sincerely to the fire.
Right.
Porter establishes immediately that emotional restraint is a high-stakes social ritual. And once he establishes that rule, he builds an entire architectural structure within the song to test exactly how much pressure that ritual can withstand.
And that structural architecture is what makes this song so incredible. How does he mechanically build this sensation within the lyrics and the music?
Right.
Because it operates on this incredibly elegant structure of escalation through repetition. It's a constant series of setup and release exchanges between the two singers.
It functions almost like a comedic piston.
Yeah, exactly. One singer introduces a horrific, grotesque, or scandalous anecdote. That's the setup. It builds the tension. And then the other singer completely deflates that tension by enthusiastically praising the party. That's the release. Well, did you ever? What a swell party this is.
And he makes it sound so effortless, but the internal rhythms and the rhymes are what actually do the heavy lifting here.
Oh, absolutely.
He's pairing things that logically have no business being together, but the rhyme forces them into this weird, inevitable harmony. For example, he rhymes avalanche with Blanche. Have you heard that poor dear Blanche got run down by an avalanche?
The mechanical brilliance there is the collision of the intimate with the catastrophic.
Right.
Poor dear Blanche sounds like the setup for a minor cold or a twisted ankle. But the rhyme scheme demands an orange sound, so she gets obliterated by a massive geological event.
Which is just so funny. Or rhyming munch with lunch in the context of a professor eating his wife.
That's so dark.
Or rhyming the planet Mars with stars. And a car called a hup with the drawbridge being up. The rhymes create this feeling of musical inevitability. It makes the utterly ridiculous feel incredibly sophisticated because the math of the music is just so perfect.
We also have to look at the internal rhythms he uses to describe the luxury itself. Phrases like, what soup, what fish, that meat, what a dish.
Oh, I love the rhythm of that part.
Notice how staccato that is. The words literally tumble forward with this clipped, syncopated delight. Porter is taking the very act of elite conversation, the interruptions, the random asides, the breathless exclamations, and turning that chatter into the rhythmic bass line of the song.
Okay, but listening to that breathless rhythm, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Our sources point out that songs like this thrive on accumulation. They just aggressively stack reference upon reference. Do you think Porter is weaponizing the speed of the song here? Is the overwhelming density of these lyrics intentionally designed to keep the listener from actually processing the tragedies being described?
Oh, that is exactly what is happening, and it's a profound observation about the theatrical experience he was designing. Yeah, think about the cognitive load on an audience member sitting in the theater for Du Barry was a lady in 1939. These names, these luxury brands, these massive disasters are rushing by at an incredibly brisk tempo.
Like a machine gun of wealth.
Right, they are coming at you like fragments overheard at adjoining tables in a chaotic, packed Manhattan supper club.
So you literally don't have the mental bandwidth to process the horror.
Precisely. The density itself becomes the comedy. You don't have time to feel empathy for poor Blanche under the avalanche because 3 seconds later you're being asked to admire the soup.
Right. What soup?
The sheer intoxicating speed successfully recreates the dizzying environment of high society. The tempo prevents the audience from dwelling on the horror, just as the champagne prevents the characters from dwelling on it.
So let's play against that tempo for a moment. Let's slow it down for the listener right now.
Good idea.
Because the song throws these status markers out so rapidly, I want to unpack the specific references that define 1939 glamour. The song acts as this, unintentional cultural archive of vanished prestige. Let's look at the power and dynasties he name drops.
He pairs the absolute titans of the era. It's DuPont, it's Hearst.
Right. The DuPont family represented massive, entrenched industrial wealth and influence.
Yeah, old money.
And William Randolph Hearst was the ultimate symbol of the media empire, total narrative control and celebrity creation.
Very new money influence.
Exactly. So by dropping those two names in the same breath, Porter is signaling immense, almost untouchable prestige. He's saying this party operates at the absolute apex of American power.
Then he shifts to the markers of fashion and escapism. He mentions Harper's Bazaar, which was the undisputed pinnacle of elite style and editorial culture at the time.
Still is in a lot of ways.
True. But he's framing the party not just as an event, but as a living, breathing fashion spread.
And he pairs it with Shangri-La. It's Shangri-La. It's Harper's Bazaar. Now, Shangri-La was the mythical, isolated paradise from James Hilton's 1933 novel Lost Horizon.
Ah, right.
So he's saying this party isn't just fashionable. It's an impossible, perfect utopia, completely insulated from the real world.
And, of course, no Cole Porter party is complete without excessive culinary luxury. He uses highly specific French wines and cheeses as a shorthand for cosmopolitan elegance.
What Burgundy? What great Pommery?
Yes.
Burgundy being the highly prized French wine region, and Pommery being one of the most prestigious champagne houses.
And in later revised versions, he throws in baba au rhum, which is this rich French sponge cake soaked in rum syrup and camembert cheese. It's just an endless, suffocating barrage of gourmet indulgence.
Finally, he grounds all of this in the specific geography of New York nightlife and Broadway culture. Have you heard that Mimsy Star just got pinched in the Astor Bar?
Oh, the Astor Bar.
Yeah, the Hotel Astor in Times Square. It was the epicenter for high society mixing with celebrity, which inevitably meant gossip and scandal.
Naturally.
Getting pinched, arrested. There wasn't necessarily a tragedy. It was a status symbol. It became just another juicy anecdote for the cocktail circuit.
And then there's my absolute favorite insider reference. It's Rogers. It's Hart.
Oh, Richard Rogers and Lorenz Hart.
Yes. They were Broadway's most celebrated songwriting duo, arguably Porter's only true rivals for dominance in sophisticated musical comedy.
But instead of ignoring them, he uses their ness as a cheeky compliment. He's acknowledging that they are the benchmark for Broadway sophistication.
The inclusion of all these specific names and brands served a vital psychological function for the audience. Recognition created pleasure.
Oh, for sure.
When an audience member caught a reference to Pommery or the Astor Bar, they felt validated. They felt like they were in on the joke, briefly elevated into that elite circle for the 3 minutes the song lasted.
Okay, I hear that analysis, but I have to push back a little on the idea that this is purely cynical, detached satire.
Oh, how so?
Because reading these lyrics and listening to the bouncy, joyful melody, it feels like Porter is celebrating these luxuries just as much as he's mocking the people consuming them.
That's a fair point.
I mean, he clearly loves Pommery champagne. He clearly adores the aesthetic of Harper's Bazaar. Isn't he having his cake and eating it too? Isn't he luxuriating in the very world he's supposedly criticizing?
That is the defining tension of Cole Porter's entire body of work.
Yeah.
He was simultaneously enchanted by the glamour and exhausted by its utter emptiness. He isn't condemning the champagne itself, he loved the champagne.
Right.
He is condemning the fact that the champagne is being used as a solvent to wash away human tragedy. He loves the aesthetic, but he is deeply cynical about the morality.
And what a stark contrast he creates to highlight that morality.
Mm-hmm.
Let's examine the actual disasters he uses to interrupt this glorious party, because this is where the comedy of catastrophe really shines.
It gets so dark.
He starts with natural disasters and geography. Have you heard the coast of Maine just got hit by a hurricane?
Now, to a modern listener, Maine and hurricane might just sound like a convenient rhyming couplet.
Sure.
But in 1939, this was a highly topical, very raw reference. The Great New England Hurricane of 1938 had just absolutely devastated the region. The death toll was massive. Entire coastal communities were obliterated.
But in the song, this enormous, lethal natural disaster is delivered as a minor gossip item. It's given the exact same emotional weight as a spilled drink or a torn hemline.
Exactly.
The response is just a breezy, well, did you ever? And then he moves to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Kitty isn't paying calls. She slipped over Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls was uniquely positioned in the cultural imagination at that time. It was a site of romantic tourism, yes, but it was also infamous for deadly daredevil stunts.
Right.
By saying Kitty slipped over, a horrifying, plunging, violent death is reduced to a polite excuse for why she hasn't been returning phone calls. She isn't paying calls. It's framed purely as a minor breach of social etiquette.
Then we get into these absurd, mundane mix-ups with household brands. Have you heard that Grandma Doyle thought the Flit was her mineral oil?
Flit was a ubiquitous brand of household insecticide.
Bug spray.
Bug spray, yes. And what adds a layer of surrealism to this is that early advertising campaigns for Flit were famously illustrated by Theodore Geisel.
Wait, really?
Yes, long before he became globally known as Dr. Seuss.
So Grandma Doyle has essentially poisoned herself by chugging bug spray straight out of a Dr. Seuss cartoon, thinking it was a digestive aid.
And the partygoers just cheer on the band.
Unbelievable. Then Porter pivots to political and cosmic absurdity. Have you heard that Mayor Haig just came down with bubonic plague?
Now, Frank Haig was the incredibly powerful, notoriously corrupt mayor of Jersey City. He famously declared, "I am the law."
Wow.
So Porter takes this untouchable, real-world political boss and infects him with the medieval scourge. The bubonic plague is the ultimate equalizer.
And Porter just casually drops the Black Death on the mayor of Jersey City because Haig and plague is an absolutely irresistible comic rhyme.
It's too perfect to pass up.
But he doesn't stop there. He escalates the stakes to the literal maximum limit. Next July, we collide with Mars.
He's parodying the sensational pseudoscientific astronomy headlines that sold newspapers at the time.
Oh.
Notice the shift in scale. He goes from a local politician getting sick to the literal total destruction of the planet Earth.
Right.
And yet, the tone never wavers. Cosmic catastrophe is treated with the exact same cocktail party triviality as a new hat.
I am obsessed with that escalation. He is essentially daring the audience. He's asking, can you imagine a tragedy severe enough to actually stop the music playing in this room?
And the terrifying answer is?
Nothing. Not even planetary annihilation stops the band. The Earth is going to shatter into a billion pieces, and the response is still, what a swell party this is.
And we haven't even touched on the grotesque caricatures he invents to populate this room.
Oh, right.
Professor Munch ate his wife and divorced his lunch.
This one is so unhinged. The rhyme scheme completely drives the narrative. He literally cannibalizes his spouse, and then divorced his lunch is this hilariously refined drawing room euphemism for vomiting. You have cannibalism and vomiting, but it's served up by people wearing white tie and tails.
And then there's the vehicular manslaughter.
Of course.
Mrs. Smith in her new Hup crossed the bridge when the bridge was up.
The Hup refers to a Hupmobile, an upscale automobile brand.
Right, so it grounds the lyric in contemporary consumerism, but that neat, bouncy little rhyme completely disguises the horrifying image of a woman in a luxury car plunging off an open drawbridge to her death.
The comedy here relies entirely on this sociopathic disconnect.
Very true.
The gap between the horrific scale of the events and the polite, detached social reaction is where the laughter lives. But, as funny and mathematically perfect as it is theatrically, our sources highlight something much darker beneath the polish.
I do.
This relentless emotional denial isn't just a clever lyrical device. It reflects a genuine ugliness in that society.
The sources make it clear that high society wit during this era often rested upon a foundation of exclusion, intense prejudice, and a profound lack of empathy.
Yes.
We see this explicitly in the original 1939 version of the lyrics involving a racial joke.
Yeah, looking at the sociological context provided in our sources, the 1939 lyric says, "Old Aunt Susie," or in some variations, Miss Pringle, just came back with her child, and the child is black.
Right.
The source material explains that within the rigid, segregated, elite white society of the 1930s, this scenario was viewed strictly through the lens of scandal.
Exactly. High society often framed these realities in ways that highlighted their own deep-seated prejudices. Human beings were basically reduced to hushed gossip or comic spectacle for the amusement of the dominant class.
It serves as a stark reminder that polite sophistication often masked immense cruelty.
Very much so.
Porter was an incredibly perceptive observer of his own class. He saw the emptiness. In this song, literally every human being mentioned, whether they are dying, giving birth, or getting arrested, becomes nothing more than material for gossip. There is zero genuine human connection in the room.
And this total societal emptiness contrasts so sharply with Porter's own incredibly complex lived experience. Because Porter's position in this world wasn't simple. He was born into immense wealth in Indiana. He married the incredibly sophisticated, wealthy Linda Lee Porter.
Right.
He moved through these elite European and American circles as an absolute insider. But he always operated with this almost anthropological detachment. He was studying the room while he was drinking their champagne.
The biographies and letters in this period paint a picture of a man deeply entrenched in the glamour, but keenly aware of its suffocating demands.
And crucially, to truly understand the subtext of, well, did you, Eva, we have to talk about his physical reality.
Yes, this completely changed how I hear the song. By the time he wrote Dewberry Was a Lady in 1939, Porter had already suffered a catastrophic horseback riding accident.
It's awful.
In 1937, his horse fell and rolled on top of him, permanently and devastatingly crushing both of his legs.
The details of the accident are just harrowing. He endured years of agonizing, unimaginable physical pain.
Yeah.
He went through dozens of horrific surgeries, constantly fighting the doctors who wanted to amputate his legs to save his life.
Yet despite living in excruciating private suffering, publicly, he maintained a completely flawless, unbroken image of urbane elegance.
It's hard to believe.
He would literally have his valets carry him into theaters or parties. He would be perfectly dressed, a fresh boutonniere in his lapel, his hair slicked back, smiling and dropping witty remarks as if nothing were wrong.
Incredible composure.
The contrast between his agonizing physical reality and his polished social performance is the exact theme of, well, did you, Eva?
He intimately, viscerally understood the immense, crushing pressure to remain charming, while catastrophe lurked just beneath the surface.
Wow.
He wasn't just observing the racket club lad ignoring the fire. He was living it every single day inside his own body.
Knowing about that 1937 accident and the sheer somatic experience of his pain, I want your take on this.
Okay.
Does this change the song from a broad social satire into a deeply veiled autobiography? Did you baby actually Cole Porter's personal coping mechanism? Like, was he writing a survival guide for enduring high society while in agony?
That is a profound way to look at it, and I think the answer is yes, in a deeply sublimated way.
Really?
Yeah. Porter wasn't one to write confessional woe-is-me ballads. That wasn't his style, and honestly, it wasn't acceptable in his era. His defense mechanism was his wit.
Right, of course.
By creating a theatrical world where characters gleefully ignore avalanches and hurricanes, he is, in a way, mocking the very social contract he was forced to abide by.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
The contract that said he wasn't allowed to scream in pain if he was wearing white tie and tails. The song stands as a monument to the ridiculousness of having to keep up appearances when you're privately falling apart.
Wow. That completely shifts the center of gravity of the song. It's not just bubbly champagne anymore. The champagne is armor.
It really is.
It's a shield against the dark. And this concept of smiling through the apocalypse was so incredibly potent that Porter didn't leave it in 1939. He actually resurrected the song, dusted it off, and adapted it for a completely new era.
The song is perhaps best known to modern audiences not from the 1939 stage show, but from the 1956 film High Society, starring Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, and Grace Kelly.
It's an iconic, supposedly impromptu drunken duet between Crosby and Sinatra in the film. Porter revised the lyrics to fit this post-war context.
And what's amazing is how seamlessly the core philosophy transferred.
Right.
The post-war world of 1956, flush with new economic booms and Cold War anxieties, was just as obsessed with celebrity, cocktails, and polished surfaces as the world of 1939.
He swapped in some new references to keep the jokes fresh for a 1950s audience.
He did. He added the Countess Krupp, for instance. The Countess Krupp crossed the bridge when the bridge was up.
Ah, yes.
The name evokes European industrial nobility and wealth. The Krupp family being massive German industrialists, pairing that aristocratic glamour with the ridiculous drawbridge disaster.
And he doubled down on the French culinary excess. That's where we get the prominent placement of that baba or room and that old camembert. The specificity of the desserts and cheeses becomes a kind of comic excess, a buffer against the bad news.
If we step back and look at what the song's remarkable endurance reveals about human nature, we see that Porter identified a permanent fixture of modern social life.
Which is?
He recognized our enduring, perhaps unavoidable tendency to aestheticize catastrophe, to convert scandal into entertainment, to answer terrible news with another round of drinks and another dazzling anecdote.
And tying this directly back to you, the listener, this phenomenon absolutely has not gone away.
Not at all.
If anything, the technology we have today has amplified it 1,000 times over. We still process global bad news through the lens of entertainment and dazzling distractions.
Oh, totally.
You sit on your phone, scrolling through a feed where a harrowing video of a devastating flood or a political crisis is immediately, instantly, followed by a video of a celebrity showing off their new diamond watch.
Which is then followed by a meme of a cat.
Exactly. We're constantly, rapidly oscillating between disaster and luxury, and our collective response is often a numb, scrolling detachment. We are the racket club lads of the digital age.
The medium has changed, but the instinct to look away and focus on the shiny object remains exactly the same. We are still having a swell party while the world collides with Mars.
That is the perfect distillation of it. Let's bring all of these threads together.
Sounds good.
The central takeaway from our exploration today is that, well, Did You Evah is far more than just a collection of clever rhymes and bouncy syncopated rhythms.
It really is.
It is a vital cultural time capsule. It captures a world dancing nervously at the very edge of disaster. And it proves that sometimes society's greatest, most terrifying talent isn't compassion, it's composure.
It is the flawless, practiced performance of being entirely unbothered.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own after you take off your headphones today.
What's that?
If Cole Porter were alive and writing a list song today, right now, what modern catastrophic events and elite billionaire luxuries would he pair together?
Oh, that's a great question.
How would he rhyme our current anxieties with our current excesses? And more importantly, if we heard that song, tapping our feet to the bouncy rhythm, would we even realize that we are the ones being mocked?
The music is loud, the champagne is cold.
And the chandelier is shaking. Thank you so much for exploring these fascinating sources with us on today's show. We'll catch you next time.